Alrighty, guys, the Defender's Saga rewatch, or first time watch, I guess, continues as we are revisiting the Defender's Saga, all of the Marvel Netflix shows, plus Daredevil Born Again Season 1, ahead, hopefully, as long as I finish these all in time, ahead of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. And today, we're going to be talking about Luke Cage Season 2. So, this is a series in which I am revisiting all of the Defender's Saga shows. I'm rewatching or watching all of them for the first time. For some context, if this is your first time on the channel, if it is, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I have seen previously Daredevil Seasons 1, 2, and 3 and the Defenders, but before this rewatch, I was thinking, before Daredevil Born Again Season 1 came out, I was thinking maybe I should just rewatch Daredevil just to see how everything lines up. I started Daredevil Season 1, loved it, and then I thought, well, I've never seen the other shows, so maybe it's time to give it a try, and I did. And while I haven't loved every single show, I've really been enjoying diving into this mythology and this other side of what is now the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because, guys, these shows are now MCU canon. Who knows, right? We'll talk about the ending of Luke Cage Season 2 in this segment. But, yeah, at some point, maybe we'll visit Harlem's Paradise. And maybe we'll see Luke Cage in Daredevil Born Again Season 2. It's possible. It might even be likely. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But today we're here to talk about Luke Cage Season 2. For just a tiny bit more of additional context as well, we talked about Luke Cage Season 1. You can go check out the full segment or the full podcast where we talk about it. And I did enjoy Luke Cage Season 1 quite a bit. I think that it runs into the same problem that Daredevil Season 2 does, where there are clearly two different shows in that one season. There's the Cottonmouth show, and then there's the Diamondback show. And I don't know why they did it like that. And in Daredevil Season 2, I think they did a little bit of a better job integrating the Punisher story and the Elektra story, but those felt like two very distinct seasons of Daredevil. Same thing with Luke Cage Season 1. But I really liked what I saw. I liked Luke Cage. I liked seeing Harlem. I liked Cottonmouth. I thought Diamondback was okay, but, I thought that all the characters surrounding Luke Cage were pretty well developed as well. Claire Temple was there, Misty Knight. So, yeah, I thought it was a really solid season of the Defenders. Now, I haven't heard, because I'd heard a bit about Luke Cage Season 1, about Cottonmouth and Mahershala Ali, and he was great. I actually hadn't heard almost anything about Luke Cage Season 2. So I was really going into the season just knowing next to nothing. And I will say this about Luke Cage Season 2 as we dive into it now. I thought Luke Cage Season 2 took some risks, and I love that it did that. I think the ending, let's jump to the ending first. Unlike other segments, we usually don't do this, but let's jump to the ending. I thought some of the things, holistically, that they did with the ending of the show were really interesting, and to be honest with you, set up for a really interesting Season 3 of the show, which we never got, we may never get. But I thought the ending of the show was fascinating. Not in every regard. We'll talk about the Bushmaster angle of it all. But I thought, this show, because some shows you're looking for, okay, what's the lesson? What's the moral? What's the theme? This show, I don't think, was trying to give a theme of, okay, this is what you should take out of Luke Cage Season 2. This is how you should live life. Now, Luke Cage Season 2 was an exploration of a character who was grappling and is grappling, I guess, currently, whatever that means in the MCU, with his rage and his anger and his city, I guess not city, but Harlem, right, in New York City, and trying to figure out what is the best way to keep crime down. And he ultimately decides if crime is going to be a thing here, I have to take this burden on, and I am going to be the one to take up this mantle of king of Harlem, metaphorically, king of Harlem, and if no one else, if it's going to be somebody, whether it's Mariah or Cottonmouth or Shades or Bushmaster, if it's going to be one of them, or if it has to be somebody, it's going to be me. I think it's a fascinating character arc to see Luke Cage devolve, or not devolve, well, yeah, maybe devolve, but take on this role. I think that those choices are super interesting for the character. Now, whether or not we're going to see him ever again, maybe. I think it's possible we'll see him in the MCU. I don't know if they'll pick up on any of that because it's been 7-8 years since the show came out. But I think that those choices that were made at the end of the season were so interesting. On the other hand, I do think Luke Cage Season 2, in my opinion, is not as strong as Season 1. Even though Season 1, I think, had some problems and had some things that I didn't love about it. I think one of the big problems about Luke Cage Season 2, and one of the reasons that it did take me a little bit of time to get through, kind of like Jessica Jones and kind of like some of the other shows that I thought were a little weaker, I think it was because this show was incredibly unfocused. I think that a lot of the things within Luke Cage Season 2 I think if I take a step back and just trace the arc of what was going on for certain subplots and characters and things like that, I can respect a lot of what they did, and I enjoyed a decent bit of what they were doing. I thought that some of the things that they were doing with the character of Mariah, for example, at first I was like, is this really, is it really, are we really going to be able to elevate her to the level of a Cottonmouth or a Diamondback? Because she was, I think, pretty much a side character in season 1. She was kind of relegated to the background. So I was like, are we going to be able to buy the fact that she is turning into this criminal empire boss? By the time the season ends, this is a crazy and scary character. And I mean, obviously she's dead now in the show, but I mean, that character, they did a lot of work with that character to make me believe that, oh yeah, no, this is a terrifying character. Really, really, really scary character. So I give I give a lot of props and kudos to the show for being able to do that with the character of Mariah Stokes. Other things, like, I think some of what they did with Bushmaster was interesting, although, I guess we'll talk about it now. It really fizzled out at the end. I mean, first of all, so I think Bushmaster as a character, right, had tons and tons of potential. I think, though, it's hard because some of what, so a lot of what they were doing I thought was really good at just setting up the motivations for Bushmaster and setting up, his anger towards Mariah. And I think that there is a way in which, that these two characters are in parallel, right? Not Mariah and Bushmaster, but rather Luke Cage and Bushmaster. I think that was good. I enjoyed that. And I think that all that stuff, it works so that you see the juxtaposition. You see how Luke Cage is kind of turning into a different side, a different character than we've seen the sort of Boy Scout protagonist character that we've seen before. So all of that stuff I think is good. I think it's good. That being said, I think, first of all, I think episode 11 out of 13 is way too late, in my opinion, to do a whole backstory episode, because the whole show I was like, where's, can we see some backstory? Can we kind of get a better sense of who this character is? No? Yes, no, because I keep hearing about how much you hate Mariah, but I don't know anything else about you other than that. And so episode 11, I mean, I appreciated the backstory, and obviously it's a tragic backstory. But I was like, this is too late for this sort of thing. And then on top of that, the big action finale comes in the second to last episode, which is fine. I don't need every last episode to be this big explosive thing. Although I will say the last episode felt more like a really extended epilogue, which again, I mean, there are some interesting things in there, but again, it is what it is. But for Bushmaster just to kind of fade into the background as the show wraps up was really odd to me, because I get it that ultimately I think Mariah was the main villain, but that didn't become clear, really, until the very end of the show. I think the majority of the show, I was convinced that Bushmaster was sort of the main antagonist for this character. And it doesn't really matter, like, they're antagonists, and you can balance different characters like that. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. But I do think that this show didn't focus up enough, and that as the season was going along, it was really hard to kind of grapple onto one thing of, okay, what are we supposed to be, seeing here? Because at the end of the day, if Bushmaster is just simply there to juxtapose against Luke Cage, then it doesn't, like, these two characters are not in relation to one another. They don't really care about one another insofar as they just want to stop one another to get what they really want, which is Mariah, which is fine. But the show seemed like they were setting up Bushmaster to be this big villain of the show. Again, I like a lot of the things that they were doing, although some of the things, like, I don't, like, Tilda as a character, I thought was a little underutilized and maybe a little confusing at certain places, but it's fine. It's whatever. But, again, I think that the individual elements worked fine in this show, worked well in the show. And again, I love the ending. I think the ending took some really big swings. But the season felt pretty unfocused. I think also it didn't help that, at the beginning of the show, Claire Temple was there, and I'm forgetting his name, but the guy who owns the barbershop, not Pop, but the other guy, was there, and then they just both kind of leave, and you're like, oh, okay, are we not going to see them again? And, I like the symbolism at the end of Luke Cage saying, oh, Claire is here, and he's like, nope, can't see her, because he's kind of turning down a darker path. I think that's great. I just think that the show was like, oh, these characters are just gone now. Speaking of characters just popping in and out, Iron Fist, Iron Fist, Danny Rand just shows up randomly. And you know what? I will say, just in isolation, I think that the Danny Rand that we saw was a lot better than the version that we saw in Iron Fist. I don't know why. It just, he seems, I mean, Luke Cage kind of calls it out. He seems more relaxed, and I like that. So Iron Fist Season 2 is next. It's 10 episodes, thankfully. I think one of the things about these Netflix series, too, is that they're just too long, honestly. Some shows can be 20 episodes. I think a lot of these shows, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, should be 8 to 10 episodes. I think that's totally fine, given the fact that these are 40 to 50-minute episodes, not like those Disney Plus shows that are 30 minutes long, not including credits. That's too short for 8 episodes. But these episodes feel meaty, and sometimes it feels like they're stretching them too far, honestly. So, again, at the end of the day, I think I respect a lot of what Luke Cage Season 2 was trying to do. I enjoyed a decent bit of it, but it felt, every episode, most episodes, and most subplots and arcs felt kind of unfocused, and it just was hard to get attached to what was going on. And I think it's just a big problem when you're trying to get people to really get invested in what's going on over 13 episodes of 45 minutes each, versus a movie where 2 hours, if it's a little unfocused, you're like, yeah, but it's, we're kind of along for the ride, if that makes sense. I enjoyed it. I would be interested, really interested, like I said, to see where this goes from here. But if we never see him again, then I don't know. I think it was an interesting place to leave the character, and then we'll go from there. So guys, what did you think of Luke Cage Season 2? Let me know in the comments down below.